I don't have a question as such, but all I would say is the future of healthcare is entangled. And always think of humanity as a whole, as a global sense, not just individual countries or your ethnic groups or backgrounds, but think of how you can really develop therapeutics for the global patient, whether you're a founder or a scientist or a clinician. What you do day to day shapes lives, shapes the future of humanity.
Welcome to Entangled Health, where we explore the intersections of quantum science, AI, biotechnology, and human well-being. My name is Thomas, and I'm convinced that health innovation happens at the entangled boundaries where cutting-edge physics meets biology, where consciousness research intersects with technology, and where visionary thinking transforms into practical solutions. We are bringing together pioneers, researchers, and innovators who are reshaping how we understand and experience health. My guest today is Ravi Kiron, an experienced leader in biotechnology. Ravi was professor at Cornell and had leadership roles at major companies like Pfizer and J&J. It's a very special pleasure for me to welcome him, as he's also a former colleague of mine. We talk about how Ravi's journey through academia and industry across the globe enables him to scout, validate, and accelerate the implementation of groundbreaking technologies, from microbiome, organoids, and electroceuticals to women's health and longevity. We talk about his perspective of the integrative role of holistic and traditional healing, explore how he has helped to turn visionary ideas into therapeutic breakthroughs, shaping collaborations with top institutions, mentoring the next generation of entrepreneurs around the globe, and much more. A quick disclaimer, all chats at Entangled Health are a co-creation between the guest and myself, and not an official statement from our industries. We are here in a personal capacity, so everything we share is just our own take, not the official view of any company, nor of my employer or any other organization. To add a little bit of dopamine, you can submit questions to the Entangled Health questions pool, and later in the show we'll dive in and the quantum algorithm, running on real hardware, picks which question we answer. Our guests add their question to the pool and then answer it live. And if we reach 1 million listeners, we might change the rules. But that's a bit far out. Stay tuned, and who knows what the quantum dice will reveal. Yeah, so I'm sitting here with Ravi. I mean, we're across the ocean, but next time maybe we sit here together. Ravi, really strong welcome to the show. I'm extremely delighted to talk to you again. As for our listeners, the idea of the podcast is to bring people together who should know of each other, and you definitely should know of Ravi. And I think it's always good to share then the individual path, our hopes and dreams, etc. But before we do so, I'm typically asking questions to my guest, to you, Ravi. When you first heard Entangled Health, what came to your mind?
Great. It's wonderful to be here as part of Entangled Health. Thanks to my colleague, Thomas Ehmer, who we've spent many, many hours together talking about exciting things about not only the science that is there today, but also the science that's coming tomorrow. And Thomas is one of the smartest scientists I have ever known in my life. So it's a pleasure to be part of this discussion. So let's talk about entangled health. What does entangled health mean to me? And the first time Thomas told me about this, it resonated with me as a metaphor for the interconnectedness of human and modern healthcare innovation. And it evokes how biology, technology, and human systems like AI, human computing, quantum computing, and traditional healing intertwine to create transformative outcomes. Me, it's about breaking silos, connecting cutting edge platforms like AI driven drug discovery or microbiome therapies, whatever, with patient centric holistic approaches. It also reflects my career, bridging science, strategy, and global collaboration to accelerate therapies from lab to bedside. And I think it's a call to align diverse disciplines for a shared purpose, better health for the global patient and not just individual groups. That's what entangled health
This
meant.
is it sounds like it's could come from the and I mean it's really resonating with the overall ambition really to bring people together from different disciplines and also look into the traditions and the ancient things because I guess we are not at the end of our wisdom, rather at the beginning. So we should take care of and learn from stand on the shoulders of very ancient traditions. Um, so, ca- can you share a bit about your journey, Ravi? I mean, we met in our company, Merck Healthcare, KGaA, Darmstadt, Germany. So we need to have the full name. But before that, you had a super interesting journey. Can you just tell a bit to our listeners? I mean, you can start whenever you want, kindergarten or whatever. Whatever.
No, I think I would say that my curiosity started with my journey towards science. My dad was an oceanographer, and he was a geological oceanographer. And
Mhm.
I always had talked about foraminifera, I talked about earthquakes, I had talked about tectonic shifts. And
Wow.
I think that's what excited me and wanted me to be somebody like him. And
Mhm.
I almost wanted to go into geology, except he said, no, don't do geology, do something else. So that sparked my childhood interest. I lost my mother when I was very young
Oh.
to heart disease.
Mhm.
And that drove my, uh, I guess, lifelong so far interest in science and the pursuit of academic medicine.
Mhm.
So I started biochemistry at Cornell. I was a professor there. I
Mhm.
was doing cardiovascular research and got the opportunity to go to Pfizer, where I did groundbreaking research in not only hypertension, ischemia reperfusion, congestive heart failure, and things like that. And that led me to looking at developing not just cardiovascular medicines, but also oncology therapeutics. So I actually did the IND for Tarceva, which is one of the
Oh
uh,
wow.
world's very successful non-small cell lung cancer
Mhm.
EGFR tyrosine kinase inhibitor. And that's unfortunately it did not create money for Pfizer because it was licensed out to Genentech Roche, and they
Yeah.
made
Yeah. Yeah.
6-7 billion dollars a year. But I have the unique opportunity that I had at Pfizer to be a part of that development. And
I get
from
it. Wow.
there,
Okay.
I went to not just doing research in cardiovascular and oncology, but wanted to get into this whole business of business development and
Mhm.
strategic analysis,
Mhm.
which at that time, at the end of the last century, 98, 99, people, big pharma said, we don't need any support, we don't need any collaborators, we can do all the discovery ourselves, we
Mhm.
don't need to work with biotech, we know everything that we need to do. But then things have changed to now big pharma having 70% of their portfolio from biotech licensed opportunities. And so
Mhm.
the key there is to see that innovation comes not from just one company, but it comes from all over. And
From
even
multi
the
parts. Yeah. Yeah.
local person on the street can have a novel innovation and idea. And that's how the
Mhm.
whole USPTO and the patent office was created. In fact,
Mhm.
years ago, there was a placard that was placed on the USPTO in the US that said, all inventions that are worth discovering have already been discovered. And this was in 1890.
Mhm.
So you can see how we have really emerged. So after Pfizer, I went to J&J where I learned about how you deliver a drug into the body, the
Mhm.
various ways through the skin, through the mucosal, through now it's novel ways of delivering a molecule into the brain where it can have its maximal effect.
Mhm.
Then
Mhm.
I went to biotech. I spent many years there. I started a few companies of my own, tried to feed that entrepreneurial bug that I had, but then landed up at Merck KGaA's Silicon Valley Innovation Hub. And
Mhm.
this was a real opportunity for me to really identify novel paradigm, game changing technologies and bring them into the company and see how they could really modify and speed up, because a mentor at Pfizer told me once that innovation is seeing patterns others miss. And I think that was the key, that
Mm,
I had the unique opportunity in Silicon Valley
mhm,
to identify novel game changing opportunities like microbiome, like AI,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
organoids, electroceuticals, organ on a chip, to the extent of looking at how you can enhance IVF and pregnancy outcomes,
mhm.
especially because Merck KGaA had a big um,
Fertility branch.
leadership in the
Yeah.
fertility business. So
Mm,
that kind of stuck with me. And so what I do right now is I spot signals in noisy pitches. Founding startups taught me about resilience, how you pivot fast but stay grounded in the data. So now
mm.
what I do is I mentor entrepreneurs and advise on partnerships to ensure that science meets strategy to deliver impact.
Hmm. Which is a good point. I mean, coming maybe to the challenge on this, because we walked in these shoes together so for a sort of time, and sometimes it's not so obvious what the strategy is,
Yeah.
and then you come up with things that you think should be in the strategy, and maybe then it makes it in the strategy, but at the moment when you detect it, you're just too early. I mean, all the intelligent people sometimes are just too intelligent for the big organisms. Uh, and you said you separate the signal from noise or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think also listeners are always keen. Is there a specific recipe, or is it gut feeling, or do you have a method, or what happens with the noise signal? I mean, if you have a signal, then you also have the noise, and then what happens to the stuff that is considered noise? So is it reconsidered at a later point in time, or just
Yeah.
whatever you might want to share on this?
I think that's a great point to start off. I mean, the way I I look at it, separating signal from noise has three filters.
Mm.
One is robust analytical validity.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is clinical relevance. And
Mm-hmm.
then the third is operational readiness.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, if you have an AI pitch
Mm-hmm.
and it shows reproducible data and clear endpoints, but they're not directly tied into patient outcomes, but
Mm-hmm.
just you have flashy correlations of what it might mean. So, for example, we've talked about quantum, and
Mm-hmm.
we've Thomas, you and I have debated about quantum application to pharma drug discovery, and many of the time, a lot of these pitches often overpromise and
Mm-hmm.
underdeliver. So, what I look for is really looking for those hybrid workflows,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
tangible near term wins.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you have a drug and you don't know whether it's going to work or not. So, you identify a biomarker that can tell you physiologically,
Mm-hmm.
functionally, whether it's going to work or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are the challenges in terms of dissociating signal to noise. Now, what are some of the major challenges that can, take you off track here? And these are, things like misaligned endpoints,
Mm-hmm.
prior data provenance, or partners really not ready for regulatory scrutiny and
Mm-hmm.
thinking that what they have is God's gift to the human race, and it has to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it starts in terms of building a relationship with the FDA early on, and
Mm-hmm.
outlining what is it you're trying to do, what are the outcomes, and the answer at the end may be go back to the drawing board and try to re-innovate yourself. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so scouting doesn't resonate internally. In fact, uh, I would say that my entire team, strategic innovation, was is not part of many big pharmas anymore, because
Mm-hmm.
people are looking for the near term revenue producing opportunities and not for a strategic innovation that can possibly give you something in the next 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
People are
Yeah. Mm.
wanting immediate gratification, bring a phase 2 molecule, bring a phase 3 molecule, take it to market and generate revenue for the company.
Mm.
The 20-year innovation in RNA therapeutics that actually helped the world overcome COVID would
Hmm.
not have happened if there wasn't a continued effort in um, basically dissociating signal from noise by those who really believed in it and developed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this is also the question of I don't know, stamina maybe. So to really say some people.
Sure.
I mean, in the big organization, I mean, more than 10,000 people, 50,000, 100,000 people, uh, you can afford in principle 2 or 5 or 10 who like ants go scout for new things, and then if it's good, then those poor ants have to convince the others that it's worthwhile walking this way. And it is just this really the big challenge also to yeah attract those guys from the other idea I think you just mentioned is this more this platform approach that you don't go looking for compounds, specific compounds, even though pharma companies are maybe designed for that or have been designed for that. Maybe the paradigm is shifting and people are shifting to platform archetypes. So, like, I mean, I don't like the word AI, but machine learning, supported drug discovery, or etc. Um, do you have a bit of a guidance what might be investable, just your personal take, investable in short term, because we know that we need to have short term revenues,
Yeah.
and at the same time be transformative enough to say to validate the investment to be first one or first mover, or
Yeah.
trigger to have partners to lead in cross industry. I don't know.
Absolutely. Now, I think if you really look at AI, I mean, I was involved in developing AI 15 years ago when it was not called
Mm.
AI. It was
Yes.
called computational chemistry and high
Yeah.
throughput screening, and how you do in silico characterization of a molecule and take the Avogadro's number of 10 to the power 23 and
Mm.
find all permutations, combinations. And people actually had, massive servers in buildings which were air conditioned, and that was actually running the whole thing. But
Mm.
now, of course, everything shifted to the cloud, and now you've got tremendous amount of capability. But if you really think about it, there are three platform archetypes that I think would
Mm.
be relevant in our today's world. Number
Mm.
one would be chemistry with a constrained generative model.
Mm.
So, what I mean by that is cutting cycle times and mitigate some of the risks that are there. And so, when you look at a synthesis for a small molecule,
Mm.
you can now really leverage the AI ML capabilities so that you can shave off months of lead optimization. You can go from idea to probably a preclinical model in a shorter period of time. So, an example of that is my friend Alex Zavrankov in silico medicine,
Mm.
who's demonstrated that and has now molecules in the clinic. Now, ultimately, by the risk and probability of drug discovery and development, whether that actual molecule actually makes it to the human is a totally different ballgame.
Mm. Mm.
But at least it gets you speeding up towards that
Yeah,
process.
maybe we can just pause a second to because not all listeners are coming from the pharma industry. so,
Oh,
so
okay.
and for example, people listening in from quantum computing development or whatever. So just a bit 1 or 2 words on how this comes that from idea from hypothesis of a disease it lands in the patient. So just
Oh,
because
sure.
you mentioned lead, I mean I know a bit what a lead and a hit is, but just
Correct.
maybe
Yeah,
in a bit more lay terms.
absolutely. So this is the entire pharma drug discovery value chain. So you start with an idea, you've got a disease that needs some kind of therapy or treatment. So you try to understand the molecular mechanisms of what is causing that disease. And then you identify a chemical moiety, whether it's a small molecule or a peptide or a protein that can change the functionality of that disease paradigm such that you get an outcome. And the outcome would be reduction of disease or
Mhm.
curing of the disease so that the quality of life for the patient is improved.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm. Mhm.
start from that. and then you develop a few molecule leads, molecules that you test in a hypothesis in an in vitro setting.
Mm-hmm.
And if the results there are relevant, then you take it to an in vivo setting with animals. With rats and mice and dogs and
Mm-hmm.
non-human primates as required. But there's always the yin and the yang saying you can cure a cancer in a mouse, but you cannot cure cancer in a human because
Yes.
human methodology and human disease is probably much different than even
Mm-hmm.
humanized mice which have that cancer. But
Mm-hmm.
having said that, at least you can use that kind of methodology to determine whether this molecule you're trying to develop is safe and effective. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have any major bad side effects and things like that. So then you take it to a preclinical model and then to a clinical model where you do a phase one, where you're testing the hypothesis in normal, healthy volunteers where you're just seeing whether this molecule has an effect or not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for that matter, every molecule has an effect, good or bad. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, to the extent that if you drink gallons and gallons of water, you could die.
Yeah.
So, but having said that, that kind of testing is important, and
Mm-hmm.
because it's a regulated industry, then
Mm-hmm.
you go to a phase two with a patient population, and then to a large phase three. So this
Mm-hmm.
whole process can take anywhere between 8 to 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
go from idea to the market. And
Mm-hmm.
there's numbers all over the place, but let's say an average of it takes $2 billion to take an idea
Wow.
from the beginning to the market. And this is taking in all those molecules that have died in the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's an average.
Yeah, and I think for normal for normal people, non pharma developers, I always find it fascinating the question where where do you want to fail? So and how is the idea because you read that you start with a million or whatever different compounds, and in the end you have I don't know 10 that make it through and then you go to in first in man and it's maybe three and then out of them you fail. So for where to speed up, because I think the normal idea would be I just start from the end and look at the disease and then just fa- just don't start even developing things that would not make sense because I don't want. I mean, the process is I make a mouse that mimics the disease, and then I cure the mouse who has the mimicked disease. But in the end, I don't want to cure the mouse with a mimicked disease. So maybe I just mimicked the disease wrong.
Correct.
So and I think is there any idea to move away from these animal needed
Yes.
thing?
Oh, absolutely. And
Okay.
I think you touched upon a really important point that the industry has been facing for the last 20 years. People have
Mm.
talked about going straight from in vitro,
Mm-hmm.
and that is cell culture
Cell
and
culture, yeah,
lab
yeah.
lab experiments, to human
To human, yeah.
directly,
Mm.
and skipping the entire mice and rats and dogs and
Mm.
non-human primates.
Yeah.
Uh, and the FDA is actually open to that. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of guidance that's coming out. It's not perfect. So you have to try and get to a stage where perhaps you can understand through novel technologies like organoids.
Mm-hmm.
So you can
Mm-hmm.
develop a human organoid
Mm-hmm.
and then use that human organoid cell culture setup to test whether a
Whether it's liver
molecule
toxic or whatever, or
is
yeah.
toxic or
Mm.
whether it might even have functional
Mm.
effects, because you
Mm.
can develop a brain organoid and then
Mm.
you can test whether this molecule enters through the blood brain barrier,
Mm.
or
Mm.
whether there is a tumor organoid that is developed by actual human tumors that are grown in the lab.
Mm.
So
Mm.
then perhaps doing that can skip this whole
Skip the
animal
whole, yeah, yeah,
uh, testing, and
yeah,
that,
yeah,
number one, also saves a lot of money and time and speeder to the market.
yeah, yeah. And I think the that's definitely worth also likely identify partners who are outside of the pharma industry. To I mean, there is a lot of people in the life science industry, but also then in the machine modeling, but also maybe systems biology, because I think as a physicist we have this foundational model, and I think I'm not sure if the healthcare industry still has the systems biology that works, so that you can build things from scratch, that you can just say I have tons and billions of pathways, but if this really works, I just don't know. So definitely there's a lot of room for, yeah, mathematical modeling, but then also to build this stuff. So to say, I have a human tissue, and then I somehow, instead of making a mouse, I clone this tissue. Do you have experience in that? So what's currently going on in this organoid thing? Or
Yeah, the methodology of organoid biology has really advanced tremendously in the last, I would say, 5 years.
Mhm,
There was an initial look. It's not just getting a tumor sample from a patient and growing it in the lab. You can do
mhm,
that, but
mhm,
then you have to innervate the tumor with blood vessels, because
mhm,
vasculature is a really important part of how the tumor grows.
mhm,
Then you also have to give it an immune background to it. So you have to include immune cells. So
mhm,
you have to have grow the tumor just as it's growing in the human body.
mhm,
Once you get that, then you can do a lot of these functional analysis. And now you've got AI, you've got hybrid AI, you've got the
mhm.
quantum workflows, and permutations, combinations of that. I think that's where you can get an inkling into whether this actually will work in humans, and then you try it
Then we tried. Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
in a small population. And then, but the other big challenge, of course, is with oncology. There's already a number of drugs that have already been given to uh, patients,
Mhm.
so it gets challenging to get naive oncology patients who have not
Which
seen
not
any
treated.
drug at all.
Mhm,
And that then becomes a challenge. And then you go to places like Asia or Australia and other places where maybe the exposure is not as much. But
mhm,
anyway, the bottom line is to go and jump past all of these hurdles to get
mhm.
a molecule to the market and to humans
Quick,
that is relatively safe.
relatively safe. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we could go on, go on for hours here. I was just picking your brain on another topic. Let's just shift gears a bit on this integrating holistic and traditional healing, because I think we discussed a lot of this over coffee when we
Yes,
still were colleagues.
yes.
And also I mean, the more, I don't know, shamanic traditions, or the ancient traditions, because they would not exist still if they would not work. And I think a lot of patients that are desperate, or they really look, even though they are trained in the Western world, they look for maybe Eastern traditions, and the other way around. So people who are trained in the Eastern tradition look for drugs. So the Western, so the materialistic paradigm. Do you have any idea where we are standing, and bringing, so this integrating, the integration part?
Yeah. That's another big topic that we can spend hours
Yeah,
talking
just
about.
go.
I can just give you an example of what I faced when I was at Pfizer.
Hmm.
Um, we were approached by a company that's based out of the UK, and all this is public knowledge, so I'm not sharing anything proprietary.
Hmm.
There was a company that had identified a cactus that was growing in South Africa
Hmm.
that had appetite suppressant capabilities.
Hmm.
And the way this was discovered is that the Kalahari Desert has a lot of tribes who go out to hunt and bring back food for their families. And
Hmm.
when they're on these hunts, which could take a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, because they had to travel a
A
long
lot, yeah.
distance in order to identify a kill and kill it and then bring it back home.
Mm,
So in and of course they would get hungry.
mm.
So they would take this cactus, identified a specific brand of cactus which is called Hoodia gordoni, and
Okay.
take the cactus and chew on it.
Hmm.
So that had appetite suppressant capabilities. And so they would not feel hungry and their focus would be on the hunt.
Hmm.
So somebody identified that. They formed a biotech company around it and came and partnered with Pfizer.
Hmm.
So we said, excellent, this is a great opportunity. You can reduce obesity. And this was like 25 years before GLPs.
Give you 40.
Yeah.
Greetings to the
25
GLP
years
fans.
before.
Yeah.
So Pfizer spent a lot of money and time and effort to
Hmm.
try and see whether they could develop this,
Hmm.
maybe grow the cactus. And this is where it comes into your question about Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine and all that,
Hmm.
where a lot of the methodology of the molecule that is in this gamish that you get, the
Hmm.
mixture of the plant and the tree and the bark and whatever,
Hmm.
everything that goes into making these medicines is not scalable. And you
Yes.
don't know the exact composition of matter, you don't know the exact molecule that is happening. And sometimes, even if you identify the molecule that has the effect, there are additional molecules that need to be in the
Need to be
mix to
in. Yeah. Yeah.
support the activity of this molecule. So
Hmm.
if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't work. So you cannot
Yes.
isolate it. So
Yeah.
long story short, with Hoodia Gordonai, unfortunately, while all this was happening, somebody leaked information to the press saying Big Pharma is stealing intellectual property of the African tribesmen and
Hmm.
developing it as a blockbuster drug.
Hmm.
So, of course, Pfizer had to stop
Mm. But do,
work
do,
on
do,
this.
do you think it would have worked because all
Yeah,
these natural
oh,
components
sure, yes. No,
as you yeah.
it was a very effective way to reduce appetite, and of course, you reduce appetite means you reduce
Yeah, sure.
uh,
But
obesity and stuff like that.
and,
So
and
but
sorry.
the cactus was growing in South Africa, so it
Yeah.
needs a certain environmental
Hmm.
rain, humidity, temperature. I mean, there's so many things to it. So you cannot ideally even say I'll grow it in Kentucky or Tennessee
On Mars. Yeah.
or Mars, and then have the same composition of the chemicals that are in the cactus that would be
Yeah.
similar to the appetite suppressant. So there's a lot of nuances to it, right?
Yeah.
So
So just to recap, so they, in contrast to the normal paradigm, which is isolating a IND or whatever, have a single component, they really were thinking to have the whole thing.
yeah, so
Ah,
you
okay.
you grow the
Learning from.
yeah,
Okay,
you grow the
you
cactus
grow the
and,
whole thing.
and you harvest it, and
Okay,
then you
sell it.
lyophilize it, make it into a powder. And clinical
Hmm.
trials had actually started using the lyophilized powder
Yeah,
of
yeah, okay, okay. Yeah,
cactus as a therapeutic. So you just give the entire
the whole
gamish,
thing.
the
Yeah,
whole thing. Now,
gimish. Yeah.
later on, you could go to identify what molecule in that mixture was actually the causative agent, and then you can develop a therapeutic from that, or
Yeah.
maybe a different molecule that's not similar but maybe has better activity. I mean, you could go on, you can develop an entire paradigm.
Hmm. And I think that's a cultural and ethical aspect, maybe. So the
Yeah, sure.
the ancient traditions knew it, and then comes company and says, okay, I now have it and want to patent the nature thing.
Right.
I mean, that it's. I think it's a strange setting, but anyhow. So.
Yeah, it is. But what did you learn from that? You learned that drug discovery and development can happen with
Hmm.
with not just traditional ways of
Hmm.
identifying a disease and developing a therapeutic for it, but you can also learn from traditional Chinese medicine. You have
Hmm.
Ayurveda in India.
Yeah, yeah,
These
yeah.
all have, and a lot of it goes back to another major point in drug discovery and development that we have not touched upon, and that's called the placebo effect.
Yes.
And
Talk.
so,
Yeah.
if you believe in something,
Hmm.
even giving somebody water and they have the belief that the water that you give them is going to cure them,
Hmm.
it's stranger than life fiction, but they have been cured. People have
Hmm.
been cured.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there is a whole body response to something like this that does work, but of course you cannot scale it. You cannot promise somebody and charge them X amount of money for the water that you give them.
Yes, and when prayer, even prayer works. So I think, and I hope to get Shamini Jain. She's talking on this quite often to the series. So I think we just need to make it happen.
But then
And
if you're trying to bring
yeah,
some of these things into the normal
yeah,
pathway, then you have to have really pragmatic trials with
yeah,
pre-registered endpoints,
yeah,
and you have to look at how the mindfulness and everything of this
yes, yeah.
digital phenotyping can actually benefit.
And I think this brings me to another point where we also often exchange and did no, not speculate, but exchange on, which is really the impact of mind or intention or consciousness on self-perception, and then eventually you can even boil it just in quotation marks just down to say, okay, the healer and the to be healed have a transactional, and then I share the transaction, I share the intent, and this triggers, if you want to go back to the materialistic paradigm, then the immunoresponse and cholesterol level sinks, and then anti-inflammatory things go better, and the patient gets better.
Absolutely.
So, and
Absolutely.
yeah, do you
It's
think?
interesting you mentioned consciousness, and I
Yes,
think we were talking about this earlier. The latest book by Dan Brown,
yeah,
and
it's
I'm
just
not pushing his book at all, but it's all about consciousness. It's
yes.
called The Secret of Secrets, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all about saying how consciousness can exist outside the body,
Mm-hmm.
outside the human mind, and have actual physical manifestations of what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a really interesting read, and you should all read the book.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
uh, colleagues of ours and friends of ours that we know quite well have
yeah.
actually been quoted in the
And
book.
have been on the series. Hi Dean. So just mentioning it. So another. And by the way, he will also just release his new book. I think in a few weeks or so. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think there's this Buddhistic tradition. The Buddhists say everything goes in circles. Da, 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 da. And in the last, I don't know, I would have need to look it up, but it's at least 3,000 years cycles, and then in the last 3,000 years, which dated back till our 1700s,
Right.
we have been in the, let's say, more body focused thing, and now we come into the period where we have also consciousness
It's called the
visible, and I think we see it, people starting about autism. Maybe some people talk about it a bit more into treat it as a disease. I rather see it as a blessing. um,
and now
so
we know that if you avoid Tylenol, you won't get autism.
again,
Oh, you haven't heard the latest news. Uh, in the United States, there's a
yeah, no, yes, no, but I mean, so this means there are people who there is this fantastic series of the telepathy tapes. I'm not sure if you have heard of it, and really many people are investing in this, and it's maybe a bit of a renaissance back to ancient traditions. Also, the Western world now learns to listen that mental phenomena
right.
there might be more than just materials, and I think it's really interesting to bring the worlds together. So not going only because you quickly go woo woo, and but this is not woo woo. It's really, I mean, who's healed has right, and I think the challenge is really bringing these, what the Entangled Health is about, bringing these together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so leverage things like you mentioned earlier, and you mentioned quality of life,
Yeah.
and it's not so easy to define quality of life, because for me this is even a superposition. So you can be healthy physically or mentally, and then you have a body disease, or you have the moment you start thinking about yourself, you get in a superposition of being healthy or not healthy, depending on what you look. And did you work with some startups, or how do you see this from the outside? So the bio world, is the bio world taking let's say non-bio aspects like vocal biomarkers or behavioral patterns or mental models or whatever? are the worlds coming together, or is it more in isolation, or people are stuck talking to each other from your perspective?
No, I think there is a commonality of ideas across, because I mentioned to you 70% of big pharma pipelines
Mm-hmm.
are molecules that have been generated in biotech.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there is a focus on everybody trying to solve disease. And I think the pandemic has really awoken the world to say, you know,
Mm-hmm.
disease is not just US based or Europe based or whatever. It is a global uh, effect that we have to really identify and overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and plus there has been a lot of uh, people and individuals and scientists who've gone from big pharma to biotech or from biotech to
Mm-hmm.
pharma. So because of that, there has been uh, a seeding of ideas across.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not us versus them. It is
Yeah, yeah,
more,
it's rather a collaboration. Yeah,
let's
and
make it happen.
and bring the other guys like the physicist in. So I think that there's a lot of unexplored territory using
Sure,
quantum, of course, and
absolutely.
and in specifically so quantum for biology, which means you have very weak sensors, NMR. Do you do intercellular NMR, what have you, with nanodiamonds, etc.
Right.
Or on the other hand, maybe like Bird's navigation are quantum effects that are very small, but the trigger reactions, and the birds know how to navigate because they sense magnetic fields via the spin flip, etc. So, but developing these technologies takes at least as long as developing a drug. So, from your perspective, as if people now come and say, "I'm a founder, Ravi, what should I do? Help me."
Yeah, yeah, especially in the uh, if you're going back to the quantum bio timelines, which are
Mhm,
quite similar to these days, I think there is a, the way I would characterize it as a near-term loop and a long-term loop.
mhm,
So in the near-term loop, you would look for quantum sensing for faster biomarker detection,
mhm,
or
mhm,
you have AI-driven chemistry for
mhm,
cycle time, or integrative
mhm,
programs for stronger and patient reported outcomes, or
mhm,
designing the right clinical uh, uh, paradigm, recruiting the right patients that you can then have validated biotherapies or
mhm,
have digital biomarkers. So that's
mhm,
where I think quantum can benefit there.
mhm,
But in the longer term, I think it's more looking for complex diseases. You need staged consortia. You know that you
mhm.
cannot bring data out of China. You cannot bring data out of certain other countries. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of innovation happening there.
Yes.
So what can we learn from that? And
Mm.
how can a gene therapy platform uh, can be developed to de-risk the IP and costs across the partners?
Mhm.
Or,
Mhm.
and I think that's why for something like this, you need a roadmap that can have clear milestones,
Mhm. Mhm.
end-to-end
Mhm.
maps, and governance packets, and other consortia with academia and industry. Ultimately, it's about amortizing risk and ensuring that the traction that they are developing in the early stage
Mhm.
keeps them being innovative, but also go towards a transformative impact.
Mhm.
So I think it's challenging, but I think the next 12 to 14 months will be really telling for this whole confluence of funding need, which is
Mhm.
not there right now,
Mhm.
the advent of AI. And I mean, right now you can develop, I don't know, anything you want in the world by asking Grok or Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or
Mhm.
Abacus or anybody. So it's like, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we let's just play this forward. So just assume I'm playing with my GPT at home, yeah, and then I say, what's the best way to bring, I don't know, quantum sensors together to cure cancer, blah blah, and then I get this beautiful answer. Certainly, I can help you. I get 3 bullet points, and then if I now want to go to a big pharma and say, this is my plan, I think, and I'm sitting on the other side sometimes, I see those proposals.
Well,
But if people really take this serious, and I think we need this partnership, how can we secure this to make it secure for both sides so that the pharma guys say, okay, this is not nonsense what the guy is telling, so I need to educate, of course, the pharma guys. And on the other hand, really have, is there a kind of checklist that if somebody says, I have now my startup, give me 12 points that I need to do or to get funding or anything?
yeah, I think everything is going to be driven by the data, of course, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you need to have a de-risked, data-driven platform that
Mm-hmm.
shows clear and clinical and economic impact. So
Mm-hmm.
if you got that right up front, and then investors know that you can then map your endpoints to clear decision points,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got faster diagnosis or reduced trial costs, then you
Mm-hmm.
can reduce the cost of drug discovery and development reaching the market. Then
Mm-hmm.
you want to ensure that now with all the AI tools and everything you have, that you're ensuring data lineage, you've got auditability, you've got regulators and
It's three
players
o'clock.
that demand it. And then beyond that, you have to have governance packets with bias and audits and IP clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to do all this in a way that helps with enterprise adoption. And
Mm-hmm.
and without that, it's going to be really tough because now data is available to everybody,
Yes. Yeah.
and even the common man on the street can get that data. But what do they do with that? How can you
Mm-hmm.
convert that data into actionable parameters? And uh, gone are the days when you had a limited amount of clinical outputs, and then you said, okay, the drug works, we are going to the human.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you got, maybe we are swimming in an ocean of data, and maybe a lot of that clinical data is unnecessary to
Mm-hmm.
real action and functional activity of the therapeutic. But now
Mm-hmm.
we are collecting millions of data points and deluding ourselves that all this data is required to make a uniformed and judgment decision whether this therapy works for the drug. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe 80% of that data is just garbage.
Mm-hmm.
But we are now uh, caught in the stream of it, and we have no way out. But
Yeah, there's no way out. So acting as a mentor, because I think you are also very active as mentor, and I think you when somewhere I read that you dedicate to advancing the life science ecosystem, which is fantastic. Um, uh, on what we just discussed, so what can you give as a mentor to so if to those uh,
yeah,
let's say young people or motivate or whoever old captains who want
whoever,
to have a
whoever, yeah.
second career.
Well, I like mentorship mainly to leverage my approximately 40 years in the pharma and biotech industry. Uh, so, you know, I think what you need as an entrepreneur is a bold vision
Mm-hmm.
and disciplined execution. If you have these two things, then you can make anything happen. Just a few months ago, I was approached by two Stanford first year dropouts
Mm-hmm.
who are who are who are 18 and 19 years old,
Okay.
who don't know the B of biology, but they know how to build systems, they know how to develop, and they've already launched three companies in,
Mm-hmm.
not in healthcare, but in something else,
Mm-hmm.
and have been successful in that, and now are taking on the task of saying, I'm going to identify the the world's data on all molecules available in the world, not just
Mm-hmm.
the US,
Mm-hmm.
and bring all that data together, put AI streams on top of it,
Okay. To
push it
do.
through some kind of analytical process, and find the ones that will succeed in humans. And they want to raise money to build these engines,
Mm-hmm.
go through the entire process that has taken big pharma and biotech all these 100 years to develop. They
Mm-hmm.
want to do it like that, raise money, identify the winners, take specific molecules to phase one or phase two, demonstrate validation and proof of concept, and sell it to whoever wants to buy it
Hmm.
for millions and millions of dollars.
It's a,
Now, sure, I mean, is this feasible? Maybe it is
maybe.
possible,
Hmm.
but it's the thinking that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
18 and 19-year-old kids
Mm-hmm.
are dreaming the impossible,
Mm-hmm.
and they are quite devoted about this. They feel they can succeed, and they have all the fortitude without knowing any of the biology. But then you talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
extremely smart, extremely capable. They'll give you answers to every question that you ask. Because I
Mm-hmm.
asked them about, how about regulatory issues, how about PKPD, how about scale up, how about formulation, how about this, how about that,
Yeah.
and they had answers for everything. So it's that kind of thinking that is happening now, in whether they're 18, 19 years old, or whether
Yeah.
they're 75 years old, doesn't matter. It's the
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial spirit that has been changed by physics, chemistry, biology all coming together.
Mm-hmm. Did you ask him about microbiome? Because it's I think I think that that's just the the big yeah, I mean, the impact of the microbiome
It's
on these
amazing.
compounds. I
It's
think.
amazing because, as you know, I've been involved in microbiome for
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
years, and I initiated the whole program at Merck with microbiome,
Mm-hmm.
seeing checkpoint inhibitor efficacy.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, where microbiome is now gone into microbiome 2.0, microbiome 3.0, essentially is to say, how can I grow a mixture of microbial bugs together,
Mm-hmm.
have an effect on a disease, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to deliver it orally, and I'm going to be able to have a
Orally, okay.
functional effect. Yes,
Okay, because I was still remember there was this stool therapy where you give it
yes, yes.
the other direction. So we are
Yeah,
beyond that and
that's
going oral
FMT.
now.
So
Okay,
fecal microbial transplant that
yeah,
does work for certain,
for certain
like
things. Okay,
Clostridium difficile infections and things like that. But this is where microbiome is going way beyond where it was.
yeah.
And if you can develop that, and if you can develop a hypothesis, develop a practical application, and
Mm-hmm.
scale up and
Mm-hmm.
demonstrate that it can actually have a functional effect,
Mm-hmm.
it's phenomenal. Because what is the microbiome seeing? The inside of our stomach,
Mm-hmm.
inside of the gut,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually exposed to the external
Yeah,
environment.
it's external outward. Yeah,
It's external. People think that the gut is inside the body and it's completely closed off, but no, it's
it's
not.
rather the opposite. Yeah, it's mainly
It's
the open
totally
tunnel to the outside
exposed.
world.
So whatever, so you've got the gut mucosal barrier also, just
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
the blood brain barrier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you can understand how to perturb that system through short chain fatty acids or whatever peptides or proteins or small molecules that the microbe is developing and releasing, because everything we eat goes through the gut,
Yeah,
and
yeah, klar. Yeah,
without that we cannot survive. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's totally phenomenal. But I think in the next 10 years or so, I think we will see real focused modification of the microbiome to affect disease therapy.
Hmm. And then is it then that it's really super individualized, or are there also
It can
classes
be,
of? Huh?
it can be and cannot be.
Okay.
It's like saying you take Tylenol or ibuprofen if you've got some pain, you've got
Mm,
acetaminophen.
mm,
Does it work the same in you?
mm,
Does it work the same in me? No. But as long as it has an effect.
mm,
If you at least have a headache and you take Tylenol, maybe it's efficacious 30% in you.
mm,
Maybe in me it's efficacious 70%.
mm.
Doesn't matter, because the ultimate goal is to get rid of the headache.
Yes. Yeah.
So It yes, so partly it can be individualized, but partly it doesn't have to be individualized.
Mm. And I think the talk just before we come to our quantum question, because um, the holistic thing is also, of course, habits and nutrition, etc. So is this then also included in all these big things? Because I mean, microbiome is also, of course, driven by the way I eat or what I eat, and then
Oh, of course.
depending on what I eat and if I have fermented stuff or not fermented stuff, or good dough or bad dough in my bread, etc.
Totally. Totally. I mean, microbiome can be affected by, I think last time I counted, there were like 25 different factors
Hmm.
that can modify the microbiome in your body
Hmm.
versus mine. It could be genetics, it could be environment, it could be what you eat, what you
Yeah,
drink.
yeah, yeah.
When was the last time you had an infection? When was
Hmm.
the last time you got an antibiotic that cleared out a lot of the
Cleared out everything, and then
microbes
a lot of
because of
yogurt.
the antibiotic?
Yeah.
So the and stress and
Mhm.
I mean so many different things can modify the microbiome within you.
Mm.
And so and that changes whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you're pregnant, or whether
Mhm.
you have any other diseases that are affecting the microbiome. I mean, all this is totally individualistic, of course,
Mhm.
but and the challenge is that you take a microbiome sample from a gut in the morning, you
Mhm.
take one in the afternoon, you take one in the evening, one at night. It can be
Mhm.
different. The
Mhm.
percentages are different. So it's a entire microcosm of what's going on within your gut.
Mhm.
So yes, I mean, I don't know whether we'll get to the stage of understanding that kind of diurnal variation.
Mhm.
At least you don't need to know 100%, is
Mhm.
my thinking right now. If you know enough to make a difference, that's
Mhm.
good enough.
So you could, in principle, then just also target your therapy and say, eat eat this and take this medication or
Sure.
drug or
There are actually,
whatever at this point in time in the morning, because it would not work in the evening.
yeah, yeah. There
Okay.
are actually companies I've spoken to in the microbiome space who say that if you take their nutritional mixture of what foods that a person should eat, like especially for women who are trying to get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
they do a sampling of their stool, they do a sampling of their gut microbiome, and if you take the nutritional mixture of what they ask you to eat, if you take uh, other parameters plus an
Mm-hmm.
IVF treatment, the chance, or even without IVF treatment, they are saying that the chance of the woman who is capable of getting pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
fertility outcomes is 85%.
Ultra. Okay.
And these are women who've not been able to conceive and have been trying for the last 5, 8 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the claim by this company is a combination of nutritional supplement
Yes.
plus IVF plus whatever microbial microbiome addition that they are doing.
Okay. And
Combination of all
no
three,
mental therapies or
no, no, no mental. And
okay.
these three things can
Mhm.
ensure pregnancy outcomes. I mean, that can be huge
This is cool.
if this works
Yeah.
the way and they're
And
doing clinical trials in the US right now. So
mhm. Would then the microbiome be a biomarker, a validated biomarker? Because I think that's quite tough, no, to to have individualized biomarkers. So that's
I mean,
not,
a lot
not
of
the
it,
most.
a lot of it, as I mentioned earlier, is all about faith, also, right?
Yes. Okay.
I mean, if you believe something is going to happen,
Yes. Then it will happen. Yeah.
then it'll happen.
We even discovered the Higgs boson. What people just need to believe. But
You ask the universe and it'll give it to you.
yeah, sure. And if you spend a lot of money, then it should be should be more important enough. So let me maybe just switch a bit gears and for our the show is people can submit questions. I have a lot of questions in the pool. Some of them are even from my wife. There's a question. And then the guests contribute their questions. And I have a random computer running on a real hardware to pick this. So I just start it, and then I go read it, and then you go answer it. Should we do that? So let me just start the machine. Just wait.
I will do my best.
Yes, there is no wrong. So here it is. This one. Just wait. I just can't read it because the program is in front. So here it's quantum selected number 72. It's again running on IBM. So and the question is something for you, Ravi. So this is always funny that this works. If you could teach any subject, what would it be?
If I could teach any subject. Well, it's a very broad question.
Yeah, sure. That's all right. It's quad.
I would teach youngsters to follow their dreams.
Wow.
Follow their ideas and not get caught up in the standard. You have to be a doctor, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a mathematician or whatever. Be curious, be innovative, go with your, of course, I mean, part of it is also assuming that youngsters have at least the basic necessities covered in life. Because if they are foraging for food and not being able to know whether they're going to live tomorrow or die because of a bomb blast or something, then of course it's different.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Assuming that they have all the basic needs and necessities of life taken care of, then explore your mind, let your mind go, and do not be restricted by this cannot be done, that cannot be done. Because it's only people who have that kind of far-reaching vision and thought and clarity of thought that can actually be successful. I mean, we've heard so many examples of many of the successful leaders in today's industry, in not just biopharma, but many other industries, who started with nothing, who started with zero in their lives.
Yeah.
They were living in a really impoverished state. They were 25 people in a room living together. I mean, we've heard all those stories. And it was the resilience, it was their focus on wanting to succeed, and they went through the effort and they are successful. So if somebody like that can go from the bottom of humanity and become a world leader in what they're doing right now, that's what I commend.
Cool.
I would say teach people that not to be restricted by anything in this world.
By themselves. Maybe even. So listen, people. So this is what you need to do. That's from Ravi. Cool. So this is good. Also something for my own nose. Now, as a guest, you can also contribute your own questions or asking anything to the pool. And this is also meant because sometimes when you are in the podcast and looking at the clock and the time is over and then you wanted to say something, but the host was too stupid and didn't ask you what you wanted to say. So if you don't have a second question, Ravi, then at least you have the last word. So please close the session. Anything you want to share, any wisdom, the floor is yours.
I don't have a question as such, but all I would say is the future of healthcare is entangled. It's completely entangled with science and technology and humanity woven together. We have faced pandemics, we've come out of it alive. So, my call to the listeners is based on the question that you asked is also stay curious, stay rigorous, and always think of humanity as a whole, as a global sense, not just individual countries or your ethnic groups or backgrounds, but think of how you can really develop therapeutics for the global patient, whether you're a founder or a scientist or a clinician, what you do day to day shapes lives, shapes the future of humanity. Now, 100 years from now, nobody might remember me or you or what is happening in the world today. But if that can build an ecosystem where bold ideas become real solutions, I think that's where we all aspire to. And we hope that that's the legacy that I would like to leave to my children, to their children, to humanity as a whole. Let's build this into a sustainable, health driven planet that can relieve human suffering, I would say.
Yeah, dear friends, we are now entangled. Thanks for listening and for being part of this experiment at the intersection of quantum tech and health. If today's conversation sparked an idea, a critique, or triggered a question, please share it, and maybe your question is selected in a future episode out of the growing pool. And you know the game. If you like it, please subscribe, leave a rating, and entangle further by passing this episode to someone you think should join the gang. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep exploring the unseen with Entangled Health.